Hello YouTubers. This next video I'm going to do is about turkey hunting. My videographer person, the person who's operating the camera, is Avery Boyd. You remember her?
Hi.
Hello YouTubers. I am going to do a series about reloading shotgun shells, but first, before that, I'm going to do more hunting videos, but before that, someone suggested to me some time ago to do a video about turkey hunting, just a beginner's type of video, and it seems like a good idea. And I know in some parts of the country it opens as early as March, so we'll get on that. But first thing I want to say is my Patreon supporters, thank you very much. The money definitely helps. My pickup's a gas hog, as you know. Anyway, first thing we're going to look at here on turkey hunting is myths. I know a number of you have watched hunting shows on TV. In those professional hunting shows, they go out there and they set up and they call and they have their decoys up, and the turkey comes in within 10 minutes and starts beating up on the decoy, and they blast it, and everything's great. But that's not usually how it goes. And a lot of those videos are put out by decoy manufacturers or blind manufacturers or someone who's pushing a product. Truth of the matter is, it's a waiting game. A lot of times you wait and wait and wait. And sometimes you don't see anything. Sometimes you never see a turkey. But once in a while you get lucky like that. There was one time I was hunting and I was out there, I just barely got this, I had a single person blind and I barely got it set up in time. And the turkey showed up. And I shot and got my turkey. But that's unusual. That's the exception, not the rule. But anyway, that's one of the myths. Another myth is that which also covers, I didn't write it here, I was going to, decoys. I'm going to get on that right off. Now, I'm replacing the ones I had stolen last year. I had a hen and this one they call the funky chicken decoy. And I either left him in a bag beside the truck when I drove off from the mountains, or someone stole him out of the back of my truck. I can't remember which. But anyway, I got this one. I still got to get the hen. This one's called a funky chicken. It's got another piece. It's supposed to look like a real wimpy male turkey so that it does not intimidate the other gobblers. So they'll come in to fight. And usually what I did last year, I got that really big 20-pound turkey, is I had that, and right in front of it I had a breeding hen on the ground, so it looked as though he was getting ready to mount her. And so that worked out because the 20-pounder was a very dominant turkey, had two other gobblers with him, and so that was very successful. But while I'm covering decoys, I want to talk about how successful they are or not. I didn't get decoys right off when I began turkey hunting. Make sure you don't cut my head off on the camera there. Anyway, I hunted for several years without decoys, and then I decided to get decoys. And the jury's still out. I mean, you can kill turkeys without decoys, but the decoys help, especially early season when they haven't been chased very much. But once they're chased and shot at, and you get real spooked, then the decoys don't always work because they get suspicious of anything. And if the decoy looks like it's in the least bit a fake, like this looks pretty realistic, but a lot of the decoys, when the sun hits them, they'll shine. And the shine doesn't look the same as a real turkey, so that's one of the things that you have to be prepared for. But if you're just going to buy one decoy, by a hen. Sometimes you can have good success with just that. Okay, another thing I've discussed is turkey loads. This is so fun, I get to try out my dry erase board. Anyway, a turkey load normally is basically a maxed out load. It's a heavy magnum. The velocity is not as important as how many pellets are in it, generally. Because the general idea with turkeys versus waterfowl and other game is normally you're trying to blast it in the head so that you spare all the meat from any pellet holes. And so you want a very concentrated load of pellets. Normally, a 2-ounce load is not unusual for a turkey load. And in fact, in 10 gauge, there's some that are more than 2 ounces. In fact, I've even seen some 12 gauge loads that were over 2 ounces. My money is on, as far as the bang for the buck goes, the Longbeard XR, I think it's called, by Winchester. It's a lead load, and it patterns excellent. The pattern's almost as good as tungsten, and it's not expensive like tungsten. It's reasonably priced. So as far as bang for the buck goes, if you can get those are a good shell. The downside is, if your pattern is really tight and your aim is off, your turkey's going to take off. You're going to miss. But, and if you want to be sure, you can always use tungsten. That definitely will kill them. I also have killed them with regular steel shot, as long as it's not too far away. No more than, say, 30, 35 yards. Because you're usually shooting something small like number 5s. And if you're going to go further than that in steel, you want to probably go with number 3s. Turkeys, usually I like number 5 shot in tungsten, steel, or lead. But I've got some number 7 tungsten that I used for waterfowl this year, and I might load some shells up with that. I also have some Longbeard XR left. I think I've got 3 shells of that, so I might use those up as well. One thing about it, you buy a box of turkey loads, they'll last a long time. You only need 1 shot unless you miss. And then if you miss and you shoot, you only got a limit of 3 in your gun. So by then the turkey's so far away that you're not going to get it. That's another thing. If you miss and the turkey is running off, don't keep shooting at the head. Because if it's out there 55 yards, you probably miss it if you're trying to hit the head and it's running. You might as well shoot at the body. A few extra pellet holes in the meat isn't going to hurt anything. It's not necessary to shoot at the head, but that's the traditional method. I have shot at the body before when I kept missing. Okay. And also on that, the next thing is camo. Well, before we do camo, let's do chokes. Need a good choke. Now, I usually for turkeys, I use a Stoker P350 pump, 12 gauge. But I also use a 10 gauge Browning BPS. Now, when I use the 12 gauge Stoker, I use the turkey choke that came with it, which normally the factory turkey choke is mediocre. This one's not too bad. There are some aftermarket ones out there, though, that are considerably better. So, anyway, that choke works really good all the way out to, well, I've killed them as far away as 49 yards, something like that. I think it was 49 yards shot at him. I've seen one of my videos, as a matter of fact, with that gun, and it killed it. Pattern wasn't as good. Okay, so now you can see I put some camo on, and this is what I'm going to cover next. You've got to be hidden with turkeys. Waterfowl too, but waterfowl you can get away with a little bit. But turkeys, you can't get away with anything. Something like this works really good. They mistake me for being part of the trees and shrubs. The big thing is to not look human. I thought about getting a hex suit, and I may end up getting one just to see if they work. For those of you who are not familiar with them, a hex suit is a suit that works like a Faraday cage. Faraday cage is a metal enclosure that blocks RF signals. And what it does is it stops your magnetic field from being detected by animals, basically. And it's supposed to work. Some people claim it's a scam, but there's a lot of people that swear by them. They're between $150 and $200. If I have enough money left over from sale of my mom's house and her bills are paid off, I might get one. But anyway, it's important to be hidden. And the number one thing that those turkeys spook on is movement. You've got to stay still. And it's hard when you're sitting there and you've been sitting there for a while and your left butt cheek is going numb and you're itching or a fly lands on your nose and you're like, you know, but you got to stay still. You can't just, because as soon as they see you move, they're gone. That's the biggest thing that spooks them is movement. You can, even if you don't have anything, something that's as good as this, if it's not as good as this, as long as you don't move. That's the big thing is the movement. That's the most important thing. But you also have to be hidden. You can't be out there in a jogging suit. You know. So that's the main thing. Another thing is hunting hours. This also goes along with myths because in the season, the time of the season, I'm going to go get into that. Because I've heard people say, oh, well, if you don't bag a turkey within the first week, you might as well just give up. That's not true at all. In fact, the turkey hunting usually gets better later in the season. And there's been several turkeys I've bagged right near the end of the season. In fact, one was like on the second to the last day. Wasn't sure I was going to get one that year, but I did. But the thing is, the time of day now. I go out, I'll start off early. I'll go out there, try to get out there at first light, you know, and just to where there's enough light to where I can see where I'm going when I get in there, and try to be quiet and get in there and get set up and stay still. And I've killed them before sunrise, or right at, because you can hunt 30 minutes before sunrise to sunset. I've killed them, it was either right at or right before sunrise. But I've killed a lot of them between 8 and 10 in the morning, and I guess the bulk of them's killed at that time, from what I hear. But I've also killed them like at 1:30 in the afternoon. And I also have killed them near the end of the day. So any time of the day you can get a turkey, but the time period between probably 1 o'clock, well 1:30, 2 o'clock, to maybe 5 o'clock, there's a period in there where usually there's no activity. But you got to figure, turkeys have to be somewhere. They're probably bedded down resting. They're usually right towards the end, towards sunset. They're moving about again, just like the deer. If you see deer moving, usually turkeys are moving too. But they're not always together. And so anyway, so the hours of the day aren't. You don't. If you're someone who has trouble getting out of bed, you can still turkey hunt. It's not like waterfowl, where, especially past shooting geese, where if you don't get out there before the sun comes up, they're going to fly out and you're going to miss them all. It's not like that. But I prefer to have the whole entire day to work with. Plus two, you can listen for gobbles, and if you have to, you can relocate. But relocating is always risky because that involves moving. And you may not see them, but they will see you if they're anywhere in the area. And another thing about that, about the moving around, there's a couple different ways that I use to hunt turkeys. There's a spot and stalk, of course, which I don't drive and look for them. That's usually pointless. I usually go to where I've seen them, and then I park and go in there. But I can listen, I can hit the call once in a while and see if anything gobbles back, and then proceed to an area near there without spooking them. Or another thing I can do is go to an area where I think they're going to be, where I think they're going to pass, and just sit there and wait. And sometimes it's an almost all day wait. Which brings me to the next thing. Patience. I've heard it said that patience has killed more turkeys than any load. There's some wisdom to that. You've got to be patient. If you have turkeys in your area and then they gobble and it gets quieter, or they stop gobbling and you think they left, don't be so sure. There was times that I was hunting and I thought the turkeys left. So I got up, walked around the other side of the bush, and they're out there in the field standing there and they busted me. And then they see me and it was over. They'll do that. Sometimes they'll take off and they'll just go a little ways and stop. They don't always take off and they're 12 miles away or something. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. You got to be patient, you got to wait, and when you're calling, which I prefer to use the box call or my voice, you're trying to imitate a hen turkey. Or, and you can do fancy stuff on this, you know, and you can do little clucks. Or you can just do the basic yelps. The basic yelps will bring them in. You don't have to be a super caller to get them to come in. But don't overcall. You call too much and you're in one spot calling too much, they think there's something weird and they won't come in. Remember, you're trying to reverse their natural instinct. The natural instinct is for the hen to go to them. They gobble, and then the hens go to them and they breed. You're trying to get the gobbler to come to you, so you have to entice them. And sometimes when you're using the call, I usually will hit the call and listen, and then maybe after a few seconds hit again, and then don't do it for a while. Don't keep hammering on it. It's not like hunting Kathleen Canada geese, where you have to call. And if you get one gobbling, as soon as he gobbles, don't answer him immediately. This is something you kind of have to play by ear, and experience will help you there. But wait a little bit, and then call him again. Because if you constantly hammer on it, sometimes you can get them to come in like that. I have done aggressive calling and they've come in, but sometimes it scares them away. And one time I had one that was hanging up. Hanging up is what happens when they come a certain distance and they stop. They won't come any closer. They keep expecting you to go to them, and they refuse to come any closer. So what I did is I didn't call for, it seemed like forever. It was probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then I thought, I wonder if he's any closer. So then I hit again, And he was close. He gobbled and it was loud. So he got curious and he came in to see. And then I didn't have to call after that because he was committed. He was coming in. Once they commit, you don't have to keep calling them. And then you wait till they get in. Wait till you have a good shot. Sometimes there'll be more than one and they're next to each other. So you want to make sure you don't blast more than one bird. Unless you're lucky enough to be in some place like, I think, Nebraska, where you can bag more than one turkey on the same day. In Oregon, you can get 3 per season, but you're not allowed to shoot more than 1 per day. So you want to try to avoid accidentally getting another one by mistake. Another thing too, something I didn't cover in myths, if no one, for someone who's never gone turkey hunting, they think, yeah, all them turkeys on TV, they look like they're 25, 30 pounds. Well, there are wild turkeys that get that big, but that's not that common. 15, 17 pounds, 18 pounds, fairly common gobbler turkey, depending on where you're hunting at. Now, where I hunt in eastern Oregon, generally about 17 pounds, 18 pounds, is a full-size gobbler. 20 pounder is a big one. I've gotten a lot of them that were 15 pounds. The smallest one I got was during fall season. It was 9 pounds or something. That was a yearling. But the hens, of course, are considerably smaller, and you gotta watch for them too, because they'll be with the gobblers, and they've got sharp eyes too, and they'll see movement and stuff. Because when you're getting ready to shoot, I usually will sit in a position like this against a tree. I want the tree behind me. And okay, so when usually I'm leaning against the tree needs to be bigger than me. And I usually have the gun on my knee, like so. And when I'm getting ready to shoot, then I don't have to move very much. Maybe just a little bit. I made sure my movements are very slow so as to not alert the turkey. The movement is not quite as big of an issue if there's a wind blowing, because then everything in the woods is moving. But then the turkeys are usually more skittish, so that's something you have to deal with. And once you blast them, you go get them. But sometimes you do have to follow them a ways if you didn't get a good hit on them. And I've had that happen where I searched the area to make sure they were dead or not dead, whichever the case may be. And sometimes they get away. But usually you know if you get them. And when you process the bird, you know, the store-bought turkeys their breast is all wide and filled out with meat. A wild turkey's not going to look like that. So before you go thinking there's something wrong with your bird, it's just naturally in the wild their breast is more like a pheasant. It's thin. You know, there's a thin amount of meat on it. It's not all, because they're not fed full of various chemicals and stuff to enhance the growth of meat like a domestic turkey is. Remember, the domestic turkey is nothing like the wild turkey, so you can't estimate what a wild turkey is going to do based on a domestic turkey. Domestic turkeys are stupid. Anytime that we domesticate an animal, they lose brain power, it seems like. Dogs are one of the only things that's maybe an exception to that. But, I mean, everything else that we domesticate, they become dumber because they depend on humans. Wild turkeys, they're on their own, and everything's after them. Everything in the woods is chasing them. All kinds of predators. So they're on the alert all the time. And they won't fly unless they're going up to their roost, or the danger is immediate and they got to get out of there right now. And that's another myth I forgot to mention earlier. People say, oh, turkeys can't fly. Maybe a domestic turkey that weighs 40 pounds. A wild turkey can fly 55 miles an hour, and they can run 25 miles an hour. So if you haven't crippled them and you're chasing a turkey, you won't catch them. I don't think Usain Bolt can catch them. Because they can run like that for a long ways. They're on their legs all day. That's one thing when you cook them, you'll find that the legs are the toughest part to eat. Because that's very well developed muscle. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover. I think I pretty much covered all the beginning stuff, maybe a tad more. Oh yeah, something about safety. Now you can buy a gobbler call. I've got a gobbler call. Once in a while you may need to use that. Sometimes a hen call won't bring them in. A gobbler call will get them in a fighting mood and they'll come in. That's how I got a 20-pounder one time. Not the one last year, a different one. But take care. If there's another turkey hunter in the area, he's going to think your gobbler call is a gobbler. And he may be after you. He doesn't know that you're a hunter. Keep that in mind. They'll mistake your hen call for a turkey. They'll think that there's gobblers with the hens. So I've had times where I've ran into other hunters, and so I would let them know that I was a hunter by doing something like this. You know, something that's uncharacteristic of a turkey. And don't worry if the call sounds a little bit off. I've heard turkeys make terrible calls. It sounded worse than almost anything they could make. So the turkeys themselves don't always sound perfect. So it's going to be okay if your call doesn't always sound perfect. You should do some practicing when you can. Get it down. That is a wet, dry call. That call can be used in rain. That's what I would recommend, but some people prefer a mouth call. I never can get them to fit my mouth right, so I don't use them. There's also calls that can hang on the gun and you can operate with one finger, which is handy because then you can operate the gun. Because with that, I have to put that down to operate the gun. And if the turkey's looking at me, I can't put it down. I have to wait till the turkey turns away. If you're archery hunting, I'll cover a little bit about archery. This is a long video, I know, but if you're archery hunting, you gotta wait till the turkey's behind a tree or looking the other way to draw your bow back. And usually aim for the body, unless you're really, really super expert with a bow and you have like a guillotine arrowhead that's made to cut their head off. Anyway, I think I've pretty much covered the basics of turkey hunting. I know there's people out there watching this that probably hunted longer than me and killed more turkeys than me. So if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, call me out in the comments. That way, erroneous information won't get to the newcomers. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.